am getting myself situated on our multiple live streams. Just a few nuts and bolts for people to remember. We do have a Q&A box here. And so go ahead and type in if you have a question. Apologize, I have like two sounds going on. Great, sorry. The multiple live streams means I can hear myself in multiple places, so I needed to turn off the volume on. Okay, so we do have a Q&A box, and given that our conversation is very organic here at Thursday Thoughts, if you have a question about Catholic schools, about boarding school, about anything at all, feel free to put your questions in right away so that we can kind of know what's on your mind and fold it into our conversation. We will have time for other questions if it doesn't get covered. But just a reminder there, we have a chat box as well. You're welcome to chat in there. But yes, I love questions and I hope to see them. Also, if you are tuning in and you need some Chinese support, 如果你需要中文服务，需要中文翻译的话, we do have a live stream on 小儿通, and I have a team of people there who are doing some translation. So hop on there. I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see a QR code and be able to get there. So yes, if you need Chinese translation, go ahead and scan that QR code. If for some reason Zoom isn't working well for you, go ahead and hop over to our YouTube channel as well. We're live streamed there as well. And you can text questions anywhere and I'll somehow get them. So definitely do that. Fantastic. Well, today I have three special guests from three different schools that I've never been to. So I'm super excited to learn a little bit about their schools and what their environment is like. And I know you all have a lot of questions about just generally what Catholic schools are and what the benefits are. So I'm excited to welcome them. So yeah, without further ado, let me let you all introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump into the topic.
Great. Well, it looks like I'm first.
Sorry.
Or not?
You are first.
Okay, sorry. Good. Well, thank you everyone for joining today and listening to us. My name is Mark Baczynski, and I am the Director of Resident Student Admissions at Chaminade College Preparatory School. I've also had the great pleasure of living in China for 2 years. I lived in China when I was a student at Beida at the University of Beijing. And then I was an English teacher in Shenzhen at an elementary school. But my experience abroad makes me understand that we love all of our students coming to our school as well. You can see a lot of information on here. We'll talk about it more as we go through, but Chaminade is located in St. Louis, Missouri, right in the middle of the United States. We're an all-boys school for grades 6 through 12, and we accept boarders starting in grade 6. As a college prep school, we offer 28 advanced placement courses and over 110 advanced or honors dual credit courses for our students. But it's not just study. You can get involved with one of our 70 different sports teams across 19 sports, or 40 different clubs, including Model UN, chess, speech and debate, and much more. But Chaminade's a great place to live and learn, and we look forward to telling you a little bit more about it.
Nice. So that's me. My name is Ann Fawcett, and I'm the admission director at Maur Hill Mountain Academy. We are located a little bit more center, I think, in Kansas, in Atchison, Kansas. And this is our campus. We're on about 95 acres, and we have about 200 students. We are co-ed, so boys and girls, and we are only a high school, so only grades 9 through 12. I actually have 3 students from China this year on our campus. I've been to China probably about 10, 12 times throughout, and I'm spoiled now. I cannot eat Chinese food in the United States. Um, but it's a great campus, a great way to get involved, lots of activities, a smaller school, so you can't hide. And yeah, so this will be good.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Clark. I am the Director of Admissions at Saint Stanislaus High School. Saint Stanislaus is a all-boys Catholic day and boarding school for grades 7 through 12. And we do start, we offer boarding 7 through 12 for all grades. We are located in the southeastern part of the United States, in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, not to be confused with St. Louis, Missouri, which does sometimes happen. So we are actually located right on the Gulf of Mexico. The picture you see there is a view from the front of our campus looking out over the water. So we have beachfront campus. We have been here on this property since 1854 for over 165 years. The mission of Saint Stanislaus, to kind of give you a brief description, is to nurture young men spiritually, academically, physically, emotionally in a place of sanctuary. So we consider our campus here in Bay St. Louis a sanctuary for boys from all over the world to come, to grow, learn, mature, figure out themselves and their place in this world. So yeah. Again, thanks for joining, and let us know if you have any questions.
Wonderful. Okay, so before we dive into kind of some of the stuff about questions I have about Catholic school specifically, describe for me a little bit, because a lot the places that you all are from may not, like, even the city name or the state name might be unfamiliar to a lot of international families and students. So, like, maybe give a fun fact about where you're from or where you live, and like what's special about it, what makes people want to live there, want to be there, and maybe like describe a little bit of like some of your international students who've come, like funny things they've said or transition things, things that have been kind of maybe culture shock for them, but then have they've grown to love. Yeah. So we'll start. Anne, you want to start?
I can start because Kansas gets made fun of a lot. People think that it's just completely flat and cornfields, and actually no, that's not the case. We have rolling hills, and there's a mini ski resort near us. So
really,
yeah, very tiny, but they have one chairlift. So I mean, I think it counts. I think for us, like, so we're definitely in a smaller city. The city is only 10,000 people, which I think is kind of crazy for someone from China to probably visualize that, because I think a small city in China is 3-4 million. So but I think that's also one of the reasons why the students kind of like that, is that it's just completely different. There's, we are on the backside of a field, and so, they will see animals. We have day students who are farmers, and they'll take the boarding students like to their farm and like show them like, yeah, this is what we do. And what I guess some fun facts, we're definitely an old city. Where our city is, 1858, our school is 1863. Amelia Earhart, who's the famous woman pilot, she's from our town. And we're one of the most haunted towns in the US. So we gotta get people to visit somehow. Yeah. Yeah, that's Atchison.
Great. Yeah. So Bay St. Louis is a small town, population probably around 11,000 or so. But we have been in recent history consistently ranked in the top 5 small towns to live in the USA. 2 years ago, we were ranked #1 coastal town in the USA by USA Today. So we are, 45 minutes from New Orleans, Louisiana. Kind of gives people an idea of where we're located. Most people have heard at least of New Orleans, if not, Mississippi. So we're about 45 minutes from New Orleans. So we get to spend a lot of time driving into the city, taking advantage of the things located there. going to the zoo, going to the museums, that sort of stuff. But then, 45 minutes back to, again, our sanctuary right here in the beach in South Mississippi. One of the things that I've heard from a few of our international students this year is that everybody in the South drives a truck. And from where they're from, you only have a truck if you have a business and you're working. And it just kind of took them a while to get used to that, just seeing everybody driving trucks everywhere.
It's fun.
Now, well, we're in St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis has about 2.5 million people. So, in terms of big cities, we're not too big, but we do have all the amenities that our students need. St. Louis, I guess, fast fact for us, 1904, St. Louis hosted the first Olympic Games in the United States, and also the 1904 World's Fair. The World's Fair was scheduled to be here. The Olympic Games were scheduled to be in Chicago, but St. Louis stole them because we already had everyone here because of the World's Fair. True story. We're also known as the Gateway to the West, which is also disputed with Kansas City over near where Ann is, but St. Louis is known as the Gateway to the West, and our signature building is the St. Louis Arch. It's about a 350-meter tall structure that signifies a gate leading from east to west. Come down the Mississippi River and head out. When you're heading towards California, you come right through St. Louis. I don't know anything funny about our students saying stuff, but they always enjoy, during our new student orientation, we will always go downtown to the Arch. And you can get in a small elevator and go to the top and look out over the city and then back into the countryside. And it's something they always enjoy doing at least once.
Yeah. Well, great. I mean, I've rarely gone to the Midwest and and South. Well, I mean, I guess, yeah. It's still
Jeremy's South.
Yes.
Yeah, South. I'm in the South in Atlanta, so a little further east. But yeah, this is fun for me too. And I think that's the beauty of living in countries that are quite large. You have a very diverse people, but diverse scenery, and it's very and a culture, different culture. And so even though like you're looking to go to the US for a certain culture, what you think is a culture, you might actually find that within the culture there is a lot more culture. And I think for a lot of families internationally, there press that you see about the US, and that could be stuff that you're seeing from San Francisco, or stuff you're seeing from New York City, or stuff you're seeing, and it may not be the same in Kansas.
Nope.
It may not feel the same at all. And so that's why we like doing these calls, so that families can kind of see like, oh, that doesn't sound like America, or that doesn't sound like the America that I know or that I've seen on WeChat. So, okay, so let's talk about Catholic schools. And I think that is a very nebulous term for a lot of people. So what does it mean to be a Catholic school? Let's start with that. What does it mean to be a Catholic school?
I mean, it's basically how we were founded. So we're all different orders of Catholicism, I guess. And so we're what's known as a Benedictine school, so Order of Saint Benedict. And basically these orders settled in the area back a long time ago. So we had monks and sisters come over from Europe, and this is where they ended up. This is as far as they got across the United States. And most orders start the best, besides starting a parish and that type of thing, is education. And they start education, and with that education comes the religion aspect as well, of learning about it. So yeah.
To add with that, like now there's all kinds of private schools, international schools, non-denominational schools, non-Catholic schools. But in the beginning, so to speak, you had a public school system and you had a Catholic school system. Catholic schools were your private schools. They were your more dedicated, higher academic, more family oriented, a lot of different things depending on each school, but they were the better school. And I think that throughout history, the last 110 to 160 years with Jeremy, you know, has really lived on. You know, like within St. Louis, there are lots of school options, both for resident students like at Chaminade, but also our day students. But our Catholic schools tend to have the highest scores on standardized tests, you know, just the best leaders coming out of them, you know, very empathetic and, you know, great men of character and women, you know, the girls' schools. But I think just what does it mean to be a Catholic school is, yeah, we were founded by Catholic orders. There is a Catholic part of our school, whether that mean a weekly mass or a daily theology course, or you will see, you know, crucifix on the wall. You may start the day with a prayer, but it's not just for Catholic students. It's for anyone. And it's just a great way to get a good education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure this is true for all of our schools. Another part of it is also, you know, with the religious curriculum is a part of service and, you know, care for your community, care for others who can't care for themselves, which is, you know, you don't necessarily get at a lot of other schools as well.
Yeah. You all kind of started answering some of my other questions. You know, do you have to be Catholic? Do you have to be religious to be able to go? No. Okay.
No. I think you have to be kind of open, obviously, though, to just because you can't because we are Catholic. I mean, you'll walk on our campuses, all three of ours, and you notice that we're Catholic. So you can't just be extremely defiant and say, I'm not going to mass, I'm not going to this. Like, that's just not who we are. It's just we're open to many different faiths. So, you know, if truly you do not want to be on a Catholic campus, then it's just not a good idea to come to our schools.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we're very open, like Mark said, you know, very open to welcoming all types of students. So,
and so
I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark.
I just say, even like I was talking with our campus minister and our chaplain a year or so ago, and you know, we're not trying to, you know, force people to become Catholic or anything, but one of the things he mentioned was people from all over the world, all different religions and backgrounds, have faith. You know, that faith might be more naturalistic, it may be in a different God, it may be in a set of gods, but you know, most people have some sort of faith. And that's what Catholic schools are. They're faith-based schools. They're schools that are, you know, open you to your spirituality, you know, service and justice and peace, helping others. You know, it's just a great place to be if you want to become a, you know, a nice young man or woman, you know, as you're growing up and getting ready for university and going into the world.
Yeah, and you all have touched at various times in just the last 10 minutes on things like values, character. So can you let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, what are some of your hopes for the type of student that would be successful at your school in terms of values and character? And maybe they're coming in with not any of those things. Hope is that you will build those things for them while they're there. Like, give some examples and maybe some tangible ways that kind of is seen or developed.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
So you know, just to touch on the character part of it, a brief history lesson. So our school is owned and operated by the Brothers of the Sacred Heart. So the brothers were founded in 1821 in Lyon, France, following the French Revolution, specifically to educate young boys who had been orphaned or abandoned during the Revolution. They brought them in, gave them an education, taught them a trade so that they could then go out and become, you know, members of society that, you know, contributed back, and they weren't just there, you know, taking. And that mission still continues here. You know, they came to the United States. This is the first school that they opened, Saint Stanislaus here in the U.S. And it's the same mission. Obviously, a lot has changed in the approach, you know, just in the world in general. But the idea is that, you know, just through everyday interactions with their teachers, with the administrators, with the dorm staff, with each other, you know, whether it's a discipline issue or an academic thing we're working on, we're teaching the boys and in Ann's case, the girls at her school as well. Sorry, it's got to get used to that. Teaching our students in everything that they do, right? So it's all teachable moments, and it's all trying to provide them with the skills and the character that they're going to need to, again, when they leave high school, going to university, going into the workforce, that they're going to be productive members of society. They're going to care for others. They're going to, be great wives, be great husbands. And, hopefully the idea is that then they will, pass those things along to their children and their friends and their family, and, spread that around the world.
Yeah. I think we kind of say a lot, like, God didn't create you to be mediocre. And so, at some point, we hope during your especially high school year, especially as a teenager, that we find whatever it is inside of you that, really just kind of accelerates you to the next level. Maybe there's something that you haven't discovered yet that you're great at. And it could be through just formation and through talking with whoever on campus. I think that's one thing about at a Catholic school, like what Jeremy says, is that you will interact with so many different people. And it's because everyone that works at our campus, they want to be there. They want to help the students, whether it is grow maybe in their faith, excel academically, get out of their shell a little bit and try something new. But they will know every single person almost on our campuses by the time they graduate, especially as a boarding student. So, yeah.
And anything to add? I'm not sure. With the Marianist education, we have 5 pillars of a Marianist education. And one I like to focus on is education for adaptation and change. Is one of the 5 pillars that we focus on at school. So when you're talking about what kind of value, well, what if a student comes in and doesn't have everything we're looking for? Well, as long as they're willing to adapt and change to what's going on around them, take both the praise as well as the criticisms that may come from teachers and counselors, and just, as we said, don't be mediocre, as Ann said, use all of that and everything around you to make yourself better. That's what our teachers and all of our administrators are trying to do for all of our students, make sure that they can adapt to the new environment, change some of their ways of thinking, Kansas isn't New York, or St. Louis isn't Chicago, or Bay St. Louis isn't New Orleans, you have to change something way you're thinking and adapt to your surroundings. But, just being able to do that, so students that have already shown that they can do that, or students that'll be great here, but students that are willing to do that will be just as great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jeremy, earlier you mentioned maybe some like works of service and opportunities for like, yeah, like service opportunities. What do those look like?
So for us, we have several ways for our boys to kind of get involved in service in the community. Some of them here on campus, helping out with, for us, admissions events, or, working concession stands and things like that, sporting events, but also in the community. We have 2 boys and girls clubs that are very close by. So our boys get, quite a lot of time get to spend quite a lot of time there, helping out there. They'll go into the nursing homes here in town and play bingo and help set up different, Christmas parties, things like that. We also have some like food banks and soup kitchens, whether they're here in Bay St. Louis or in surrounding communities, that our boys get involved with a lot. We have a pretty good relationship with one here locally, where we try to do fundraisers and food drives, a few times throughout the year, as a whole entire school community. And then there are some other organizations where our boys get to work with, the Special Olympics, or maybe handicapped children doing kickball and t-ball and things like that, where they buddy up with a young child and they kind of go through the season with them. It's called buddy ball. So they get to spend a lot of time doing that. Yeah, it's a really, really cool organization that they have here in town.
Yeah, I think all of our schools probably require community service.
Yes, ours is
for graduation. Yeah.
Yeah, we
So I
do.
think that's
a graduate here would
new.
have, a minimum of 100 hours by the time they graduate. They study with us for 4 years.
Right, and we have several at least 3 other organizations on campus that are also service, oriented.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, can you describe for me, a little bit like a typical kind of day of a boarding school student? I think in some parts of the world, boarding school means that there's a lot of homework and studying happening. You've got
Oh,
your
no.
regular day of school, and then afterwards you get a little bit of a break, but then you're like, we call it, like in China, there's it's like late study. I think it's
Oh,
the
yeah,
it's
studying late at
one's
night,
the
yeah.
she. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
yeah, just so for the benefit of families to be like, okay, this is what the day in the life of a student would look like.
I mean, last night our students were playing dodgeball. So like, I think all of our, fairly simple, wake up in the morning, depending on if you want to get up at 6 o'clock or 6:30, depends on when school starts, go to breakfast, then you're at school. I mean, at least for us, like you don't go back to the dorms. You're at school the whole day until about 3:30. So for us, and it's probably similar for these guys, taking maybe 6 to 7 classes throughout the day. And then you have your extracurricular time. Like we encourage, like, get out, do something, join a sport, theater, speech and debate, whatever it is. If you have a community service project you're doing, and then dinner. And then throughout the week, you do have a structured study hall time. And so if you haven't gotten something done during the day, or you need to maybe work on an essay or a paper or study for a test, like that's usually with the time that you're going to do it. We don't really let students stay up super late, like midnight or 1 a.m. studying. We want them to go to bed. We want them to get 8 hours of sleep. If they need to stay up past lights out, it's because maybe they're finishing a project. Otherwise, we're trying to teach them that you need to get what's done during the day. You need to prioritize your time. You need to have better study habits. And then still, be a well-rounded student. High school, you got to have fun. Like, I mean, it isn't always about the SAT or like in China, the Gaokao. Like it's, you have to be a well-rounded student and have a good time. And, but still we make sure that, you're taking studies still seriously, because that's what your parents want you to do. So yeah. Yeah.
Anything
I don't know.
the typical day? That's what it looks like.
Well, I'd say it's similar typical day for us. We do keep a pretty structured, like Sunday evening through Friday afternoon schedule to keep our boys on task, make sure that they do have some study time set every day at the same time, 7:30 to 9 at night, right after school as well. We have an hour study hall if a student's not involved in something else. But, if we keep the boys, on track and, very structured, they have free time and fun time and recreation time, but they have to fit that pretty easily in. But a lot of that, especially for us, is teaching that organization and time management, so when they go on to university, that's another part of what a college prep curriculum is. We're preparing them for like living independently as well. But then once the weekends come, a day in the life of our weekend activities are wonderful. We have on-campus and off-campus activities every weekend for the guys to get involved in, go off, see movies, ride go-karts, do different things. But then once Sunday evening comes after dinner, we slide back into that study hall. So no, it isn't study all the time, but most of our schools are still fairly rigorous or challenging.
Yeah.
You have to work hard, advanced level classes, honors classes, even our regular classes, especially if you're doing it in a second language, you may need that extra time and support to study. But that's what's also good about dorm parents and prefects and, resident directors living in that boarding school area, say, as opposed to a homestay. You're surrounded by teachers and staff that can help you when you need it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Here at St. Stanislaus, very similar to what Mark was saying, Sunday through Friday, pretty structured. After school, if you're not involved in a sport or a club, you'll have some free time, mandatory activities. When I say mandatory activities, like, going to play kickball or dodgeball or something like that, something to get up, get moving around. Study period every single night. But the nice thing about what we also provide is as students spend more time here and as they grow here and they show that, hey, I can get my studies done, I can, be trusted to be on time, be where I'm supposed to be, that schedule become much more flexible on an individual basis. Again, helping prepare them for when they do get out of high school and they go to college and they don't have a prefect or they don't have a parent looking over their shoulder to make sure that, hey, you're getting your homework done, you're getting your studies done, you're also having your recreation time. So we try to give them the ability to show, what they're capable of while they're still here in high school.
Let's talk a little bit about English. Given that a lot of people who are going to be looking internationally may not have, grown up speaking English, but also have differing levels of English ability. What is your expectation in terms of their ability when they get there? And then what support do you all provide at your schools?
I think, don't we all have ESL? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we all do have an English as a second language program. So, I mean, everyone has different requirements, but so it just depends. I think like most schools, they think the expectation is, really trying speaking, the speaking, and it is different in the classroom and socially. And getting involved in something is the easiest thing to do. We actually require new students to participate in something immediately. And for international students, that's really what helps them the most. And then they become friends with the American students, or maybe even, the students whose English levels are higher, who can help them with, studying or writing or those type of things. But I think with all of us, because of the English as a second language support, we have then faculty that understand that they have to develop the students' English, across different areas. And even a student transitioning into normal courses like mainstream is still going to need the support because it's still just their second language. And our faculty all understand that, which is great. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I won't lie and say that you can come in without any English ability. I mean, it's even with the SL classes, you're going to be in some other, math and science classes and different things. But, most of our schools, I mean, for us, we've had international students with us for over 50 years. And our teachers really understand the needs of those students. And so even in their quote unquote mainstream courses, our teachers still do a pretty good job of making sure that what they're teaching is understood by all. But that you have to come in with a little bit of intermediate to advanced level, and then it's also, I mean, I know Jeremy and we have middle school, so like I think if you're coming in as a 7th grader versus coming in as an 11th grader,
right,
we're going to have if you're coming in for 11th grade, we only have 2 years to get you into a top university. We want you to have that 80, 85, I'm not putting words in your mouth, Jeremy, but 80, 85 TOEFL or thereabouts. If you're coming in as a 7th or 8th grader, you still have some time. You're going to be able to pick that up on your own. 7th and 8th grade transcripts don't really count, so like if you have a couple bad grades at the beginning, it's not a problem. But yeah, I mean, like we're that's part of our family atmosphere at Catholic schools, is we're going to support you no matter what your language ability is, and but help you get better quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that covers it perfectly.
Yeah. In the dorm setting, roommates, like what's the, and are international students living with international students, or is it mixed?
Yeah, for us, it's mixed. So we typically what we do is any international student is going to have a roommate. So we have 2 to a room. Their roommate will be either English speaking or speaking different language, and then it won't be someone who speaks their native tongue.
And all boarding schools are a little different, like on how their dorms are set up and everything. But similarly, we have 2 boys to a room in grades 6 through 10, and then 11th and 12th graders get single rooms, at least in our current dorm setup. We're lucky to be opening a new dorm in 2024, which will have quad rooms, which is good and bad. It'll look beautiful, but it'll mean our juniors and seniors also get roommates, so. But but yeah, and the same thing, we've got students from 10 states and 15 countries that study with us, so they mix really well. We will make sure that the boys are in the same grade. We'll never have like a sixth grader and a ninth grader together, or even a 10th grader and 11th grader together. So that's for a few different reasons, both maturity wise but also similar classes, similar interests, so it gives them, a better chance of being a good roommate to each other.
Yeah. We have two different dorms, as we have one for girls and one for boys. The girls actually get their own room. So it's usually better. The girls get their own room. But they're also a little bit smaller. So it would be kind of difficult to fit two beds in there, even though they used to way back in the day. And then the boys' dorm, the rooms are just a lot larger. So we do double up for most of it. Every once in a while, a senior will get their own room, sometimes a junior if they're lucky. We, though, sometimes don't mind if they speak the same language and they want to live together, just because sometimes that does bring just a sense of home. And, the dorms are their home. We're not extremely strict on you have to speak English, like in the dorms, because that is kind of their brain break. Like, you want to speak your own language. I always feel bad for a student who's like the single student from a country and they don't have anyone to speak with. So it is nice to have at least two or a few students who speak the same language, just to help with homesickness as well.
Yeah.
But again, though, you're walking down the hall, like Mark said, and you have kids from all around the United States, all around the world, and you're hearing many different languages. So it doesn't really matter, I think, if you're living in the same room with someone that speaks the same language, because you have to leave it to go to the lounge, the kitchen, to the bathroom, and you're talking with, basically all of your roommates, kind of.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, I told you I might ask this question, misconception. Like, what are some myths and misconceptions about your school, maybe Catholic schools, any myths and misconceptions that you kind of want to be like, no, guys, listen. Like, I don't know who told you that, but
girls think they're going to a convent, and then it's run by nuns, and we're trying to like make them nuns. Boys sometimes think that it's like super, super strict and we're like military, and that's not it. And then we're trying to convert you, but no, no, like that's not the case at all. Those are probably the two big ones that I get a lot.
Okay.
I don't know.
So this would probably be similar for both Jeremy and I, but I'm not sure. But why a boys' school? If you go to a boys' school, you're all going to be bullies, or you're never going to see girls. Or what if I like theater? I can't do the arts. No, I mean, we're boys' schools, girls' school, co-ed schools. They all have their positives and maybe even negatives. But, we know how boys learn best. They're active, interactive learners. So the misconception of going to a boys' school and maybe not being able to socialize or meet girls or do the arts or different things is probably one of the biggest things I talk about with families when they look at us. Well, it's not true. We have sister school relationships. We still have prom and homecoming, and some of our clubs and activities, and even some of our sports like bowling and racquetball are co-ed with different schools. So coming to a boys' school doesn't mean you won't be ready for the social aspect of university. But I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions we get.
Yeah, definitely. We also get that, they don't understand why all boys school, or all the issues that come, or in their mind, the issues of only being boys. For us particularly, we are fortunate enough to actually have an all girls school that sits a block away from us, right across the street. So our boys get to interact with the girls. We share some classes. They use our library, the cheerleaders for our sports teams. So they kind of get, I don't know a better way to say this, but like the best of both worlds. So most of their classes, they are, just all boys, and they get to kind of, I guess, be themselves a little more in those classes. But then also the social interaction with the girls is always there as well. And then the other thing I think we've touched on a few times is the idea that you have to be Catholic to go to one of our schools. Yeah. And that's not the case. And that you won't be accepted if you're not Catholic, right? And I think for all of us, it's the opposite of that. You know, we're accepting and want to have as many, you know, different faiths and cultures and students as we possibly can from all over the world to enhance the experience for everybody on our campuses. And we're not, you know, beating you over the head with the Bible and you know, trying to convert you. It's a much softer approach to the religious side and the spirituality side.
I think I had one of our Chinese students, he actually, because he helped me with a video of Life of a Boarder, and he put it like, okay, so I go to mass, but for me, it's a break for myself. I can meditate. We're not asking you to kneel or go up and receive communion. You can go up and get a blessing if you want from the priest. But for him, it was just kind of being able to sit there in peace, and that it kind of helped him through his day at that time if we had all school mass. So.
No, these are great. Well, of course, at every Thursday Thoughts session, people are concerned about the application. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are things that people should be concerned about or should pay attention to? What are things, I mean, obviously every school has a different process, but you know, there are some things that are similar in terms of maybe you know, essays or letters or recommendations or parent statements or things like that. So talk a little bit about the process and what you hope for in kind of the whole engagement through that.
I think getting to know the student, I mean, sometimes we don't really talk to the parent too much, especially if they don't speak English. I'm sure we all have families or students that could help translate, you know, but I think for us, it's really getting to know the student, but also knowing that the student has done their research. I have interviewed kids that thought they were interviewing for a different school. And so I think that sometimes, you know, we have obviously the application that takes, you know, your general information, your education background, what your interests are. We require letters of recommendation, English proficiency test, probably a writing sample. But really a lot of times that interview is how we get to know the kid and if they're going to fit in on our campus, because picking a high school for boarding school and going that distance is a huge decision. And the last thing that we want is the kid not to be happy and, you know, leaving after a year or becoming homesick so much because they made the wrong decision. And that's what we're here for, is to help them make that decision. And I think if, you know, for Jeremy and Mark, it's a little bit different. Obviously, if they have a girl applicant, they're just going to send them my way. But that's another thing too, is that I'm sure that they've had students who don't, and parents who don't do the research, and they apply and they're like, well, we don't accept girls. Sorry, we're an all boys school.
Yes.
Or I've had kids ask me like, oh, I really like your lacrosse team. We don't have a lacrosse team. So I don't know what school you're looking at. So, and I realize there's a lot of boarding schools, there's a lot of options, but sometimes just taking that extra time to research goes a long way on their side. That makes it a little bit easier when they're talking to us and having that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick kind of anecdote. We actually had years ago a Chinese student who was accepted, flew in, called and said, hey, I'm at the airport, so nobody's here to pick us up. And they were in St. Louis. So they had not done their research.
I would have went and got them.
St. Louis. Yeah, so then we had to figure out how to get someone to fly to St. Louis, meet this kid, bring him down. They had not done their research at all. They didn't even know where we were located. But yeah, for us, very similar. You know, we're looking for, we try to keep the process as streamlined as possible, because we know that it can get hectic, and we don't want the process, the admissions process, the application to be an obstacle. So we try to keep it as streamlined. We're looking to collect grades and reports just like everybody else. But really, to echo what Ann said, the interview for us is a big part. You know, I personally interview every international student. I imagine Mark and Ann do as well. And yeah, knowing where the school is located is a big help. But also, yeah, what are you interested in, and do we offer those things here? If you're or what is it that you're looking for in a boarding school? If you want to go somewhere where they have winters and they have snow, St. Stanislaus isn't going to be the place for you. But knowing the school, knowing what's available, but also showing a willingness to get involved in a willingness to be a part of the community here is a big thing for us.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that would be, you said, what is something to think about during the engagement, during this process? Well, staying engaged. I mean, there are some schools, that'll say, okay, this is when you apply. You won't hear from us until we tell you if you're accepted or not. But in more of the Catholic way, that family spirit, that, taking care of people, like if you contact our school and say, I would like to learn about applying, and we reply to you, don't wait 2 weeks to reply to us again. We like that kind of, maybe not constant communication, but if you want to have a conversation, let us know. And even if that comes to the point, well, I've decided to look elsewhere, I'm going to stop my application. Just being engaged with the school admissions directors, is a great way to also show that you are interested in the school. So it's a good way. I mean, it's the same thing we tell a lot of our students who are looking at universities: visit the campus, talk to them, reply to emails, show them that you're engaged. It'll be a better chance for you to get into that school. Well, that's the same at the middle school and high school level with boarding schools as well. Stay engaged. If you're one of the people viewing this event, let us know, I mean, and then we'll say, hey, that person was already interested before they knew they were interested. But yeah, so just go through the standard process and stay engaged and just get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we all know that given that this is the second language for most families, there are other people involved in helping do the research, right? It's hard. It's hard for families who can't read English fluently to be able to look at everything on the website and understand it. So, but when there are a lot of hands in the process, there are also it gets a little confusing on your end, but maybe on their end as well. So kind of advice for agents or counselors who are on this call. What would you say, here, this would be really helpful for?
Are all three of us working with the U.S.-China Catholic Association? So actually, a lot of the Catholic boarding schools, we have most of our information up online in Chinese as well. Whether that be through sites, like more specific Chinese sites, but we're working with an organization that works with Catholic schools, that has done a lot of translation for us, updated our Baidu Baike pages, and helped us with our Weibo sites. And, so we might not all have every one of those, but we all have something online that is actually very up to date, because this is something we just started doing recently. But in addition to that, most of us are okay to work with agents. And for the agents who are on here as well, stay engaged. That's the big part of that as well. I mean, we don't mind working with agents or consultants or family friends, and we know that may take a little bit of extra time to go point A to point C, but just let us know what's going on. We'll take the time to explain it. Some of us, I mean, I know we have a number of our brochures and boarding information in multiple languages that we can share. Not everyone does that, but I know that at least the group that we're on right now, we have a lot of our stuff up online in Chinese for the families.
Yeah, it's called U.S.-China Catholic Association, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll send the link on, as a follow-up for everybody who is signed up for this. But yeah, that would be great if we could get that information out to families.
I think with agents, it's really just communication, and just, trusting us that we are going to keep you included in the conversation. I think sometimes agents think that we'll steal away their families so they won't get the commission. And a lot of it on us is just, it's a partnership. And I usually, even though we want the parent's email, because we want to make sure that the parent knows that we care about them, we care about their child, I include the agent on all of the emails regardless, or if it's to the agent, include the parent on the emails, because I just want everyone to get the same information. And so I think partnerships with at least like Catholic schools is a little bit more meaningful than just signing a contract, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the takeaway is to like stay engaged.
Yes, like Mark said.
Well, great. Well, I just want to make sure that everybody watching on all of our platforms, if you have not asked the question yet, now is the time, because the hour is coming up. And I know everybody has a busy day ahead of them, or maybe they need to get another cup of coffee since it's so early in the morning.
Yes.
I don't know, it's 10 o'clock here
Oh,
in
yes.
Seoul.
Mark is in Seoul. Everybody,
from
Mark
Mark.
is logging in from Seoul. And that's like another sign of like how committed these colleagues are in finding diverse students on their campus.
Yeah, all of us love to
from
travel, you know,
all
whether
over
we
the
love it or
world.
not, we all do travel all over the world. But
Yes.
and it's great. And it's just, I've been kind of upset. It's been 3 years now since I've been able to travel to China. So that's why I love doing some events like this, so we can reach out to families, let you know more about our schools, about Catholic schools, about boarding schools, you know, anything you'd like to know. So yes, of course, if you have any questions, now's the time to let us know.
Yeah. And I was gonna go ahead and share contact information as well while we're kind of wrapping up here. There is, you know, we do these talks and we want people to kind of come and learn generally about a certain topic, or be able to ask general questions. But if any of these schools like pique your interest at all, you should directly engage. Definitely send an email and ask a question. And like, really, we're always like, no question is a bad question. Like you should get it out there, because you don't want to try to get the information from a third party that doesn't actually know. So so definitely go to, we are like directly to the source. And so take a picture, write down these emails, and make sure you reach out. Okay, so any final words of advice for those, you know, there are lots of range. There are some students, families are like, we're applying this season, you know, this cycle, but there are others who are like, I'm just kind of thinking about the, you know, US. I don't really know if this is the best choice for my family or for my student. So any kind of words of advice for either side of the spectrum with regards to considering Catholic schools?
I mean, ask questions, do your research. I would say if you're considering it, ask if we have, you know, parents who are willing to testify on their kids' experience, and then even alumni as well. Alumni who are back in China, or alumni who stayed in the US at university. I think all 3 of our schools have those contacts. And as much as we can give, you know, advice and facts and state what you need to do for the application and how our schools are, those alumni and those parents, they lived through it. And so, you know, they're the best resource, and we are happy. I mean, I have a few parents in China right now that are always asking, like, if you have someone, just let us know, share a WeChat. They're happy to share their experience, and especially, you know, how it was as a Catholic school. Mm-hmm.
Little advice from me, I think that's great. While we all have ESL, keep studying English. It'll just make your life easier. I mean, find a medium that you like. Maybe you like, you know, reading comics. Maybe you like watching, you know, Marvel movies. Maybe you like, you know, doing something. Try to do it in English, you know, do something you like, just to keep hearing that every day. So even, especially those families, as you said, that may be looking a few years down the line, well, it means you still have time. You don't have to do the late study. You don't have to go to cram schools all the time. Find something you like, do it in English, and you'll be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a good strategy is also to set goals. Know what your purpose for coming to the United States to study is. What is it you're trying to do? What do you plan to do after high school? Know those things, and I think it can help give you a clearer picture of the type of high school or boarding school that you're looking for when you come to the U.S. as well.
Thank you. I would say, you know, especially to the agents and the counselors on the call, like involve your families. Like, don't just tell them this is the one, this is the one that they should look at, but really involve them and have them ask questions too. I think a lot of the takeaway here is like, you know, you have access to information and you have direct access to information. I love, Anne, you saying like, look, there are alumni, people from your home country who can speak to their own experience, not like some other third, fourth, fifth hand experience. So, so we always say on these talks, like, connect with someone. There are people on the other side, and even though we're not able to actually be in China right now, we can still, thanks to technology, really connect to a real person on the other side. And that's hugely important. That's why we do these talks. We want you to like feel like you're not just throwing something into the air and then it's just like it just automatically comes up with a decision. That's not how it works. And especially like what we've gotten a sense tonight, there's warmth on the other side and people who want you to engage, ask questions. So please do remember that in the process, that it's not just like this scary process and you just throw your materials to someone and then they magically make something happen. So that would be my kind of last words of the evening or morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much to Anne and Jeremy and Mark for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for Thursday Thoughts. Again, everybody who's here, everybody who's watching, make sure you reach out if you have questions. I love that Jeremy and Mark talked a little bit about boys' schools because next week's Thursday Thoughts is about single gender schools. It's exactly, we're going to be talking a little bit more detail on. I'll have guests from 2 girls' schools, 2 boys' schools, and they're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. So if that is of interest to you, or if you want to like really see if those myths are busted, come and join us next Thursday. In the meantime, enjoy your day, evening, wherever you are, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.